Let's do some QB quick reads. We got 3 quarterbacks to focus on, all coming back from injury. Let's start with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I want to see Joe Burrow go reclaim his spot. And that spot is the one where the Kansas City Chiefs, who have owned the AFC ever since Patrick Mahomes got there, that was the quarterback that they didn't want to see. And we all know it. He was the quarterback that would stand sideline to sideline, eye to eye against Patrick Mahomes and say, I could take you down. And can he stay healthy enough? He's got the best offensive line that he's ever had. They still have plenty of weapons. Jermaine Burton, who they draft out of Alabama, is going to replace Tyler Boyd. I want to see Joe stay healthy, get that swagger back, and lead Cincinnati back to that conversation of, hey, is that the one? Is that the guy that can go beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and knock them off from that pedestal of the AFC champions? Joe's got to stay healthy. If he does, he's good enough. Anthony Richardson. 2 things. Number 1, don't change your style of play. Don't shy away from hits. People constantly say, dude, you were drafted number 4 because you're 6'4", 250 pounds, and run 4.3. Don't shy away from it. You're going to take some shots with your style in the NFL. But it gives you the chance to be absolutely great. Under Shane Steichen, who's going to design this offense for you. And the second thing is this. Go flip the AFC upside down. I firmly believe that Anthony Richardson, if he's able to go play the way that he's capable of playing, can flip that conference upside down. Aaron Rodgers, go be Peyton Manning with the Denver Broncos. That's all you got to be, man. You have had one of the great careers in the history of this league, one of the most talented players in the history of this league. Go be a guy that'll hand it off a little bit. Go be a guy that'll play a little bit boring and rely on your defense. And then when you got to go be great, we all know that you can. I want to see Aaron Rodgers do that and lead this team into the AFC Championship game.
Well, speaking of leadership, there was some of that on display yesterday. Our Rich Cimini covers the Jets, and apparently it was a really bad practice for the offense. And the reports are that Aaron Rodgers got hot with some bad snaps and was yelling at people. And here's tight end Tyler Conklin addressing how Rodgers reacted.
That's the beauty of playing with, a great like that, right? Like you have someone that's going to, at all times, hold everybody accountable no matter who you are, what happens. I think that's really a blessing at the end of the day, to be able to have someone that cares that much, has a standard like that, that's going to, that becomes our standard as a team. But to have a Hall of Famer that's won a Super Bowl, been there, done that, I think that really is, it's necessary.
I mean, that's what everyone was talking about, is that the great ones sort of elevate everyone else's level because they demand it, and he's doing that. But, Dan, there's a point that you wanted to make here that I think is a really interesting one.
The Jets' defense is going to be the biggest benefactor to Aaron Rodgers. We've talked about Aaron and the Jets and what's this offense and Garrett Wilson, love it, all that. Okay, the Jets' defense in the last 2 seasons has given up on average of 19 points per game. Pretty darn good defense. We've talked about that. Aaron Rodgers has never, in the history of his career, averaged as the starting quarterback less than 20 points. In fact, the year that everyone says, oh my gosh, Rodgers stunk, was in 2022. They averaged almost 22 points a game. So by definition, and I know it's not black and white, they're going to win every game. I had research check this out. The New York Jets, since Robert Saleh, and again, this is a team that has had a defense that many of us had said best in the NFL. Since he's become their head coach, they've had the lead in the fourth quarter 19 times. That's the second fewest in the NFL behind the Carolina Panthers. They've actually had the lead in the game, no matter the quarter, 26 times since 2021. That's by far the least in the NFL. The point is this. The Jets' defense has been one of the best defenses in football without a guy that is one of the greatest ever. Aaron Rodgers, simply by walking on the field, makes this defense now go from, hey, we have to go try to win the game, to be like, oh, we can blow teams out.
The important point you're making is the Jet defense never plays with the lead.
Ever.
And that is just an entirely difference. The stats that you're pointing out are interesting because what they do is they illustrate the fact that the Jets have had, and I don't mean this as disrespectfully as it's going to sound, the worst quarterback play you've ever seen
Greeny,
over
so
the
now
last 3 years.
You're going to get these pass rushers knowing other team has to throw the ball. You're going to get Sauce Gardner sitting there going, you can't run the ball because it's the fourth quarter and you're down 10. They've never been able to play in that style.
Look at Pop nodding. What do you think, D. Wood?
Dano is exactly right, and that was a point that I've been telling folks all along. Imagine what this Jets defense is going to be like when you're playing from a lead. All those pass rushes, when Hassan Reddick, when he eventually reports, Jermaine Johnson, Quentin Williams, all those guys, Will McDonald, the fourth, all those guys will be able to pin their ears back. knowing that you have competent quarterback play. The Jets have had the worst quarterback play in the league. Their defense has had to play nearly perfect just to keep them in games. And now you're going to add in Aaron Rodgers into this mix with all the weapons and changes that the Jets have made on offense. Like if I'm on the Jets defense, I'm ecstatic right now. I'm excited knowing that we got competent quarterback play heading into 2024.
So let's do a little more math here, Harry. Like Aaron Rodgers plus that Jets defense equals what?
Well, if this team can stay fully healthy, they're Super Bowl contenders. There's no question about that. Because, number one, I think Dan hit it right on the head. The greatest ally for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets is that they have a top 3 defense. And then I haven't even mentioned the run game. I think it's important for this football team to understand that you have to feed Breece Hall. You have to give him the football. Rely on him, Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this is a team that just needs to go out there and just throw the football all around a million times. But you don't need Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level because of what you have in the backfield in Breece Hall, because of what you have in Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, who I think is one of the better jump ball wide receivers amongst the NFL. But that defense alone, being a top 3 defense, you can lean on it and rely on it.
I mean, let me get Jeff a final word in here. I'm running out of time. Go ahead, Jeff. Go.
No, I just think objectively speaking, we're talking about, as Dan put it, in black and white terms, a team that should be destined for success if, big if, everybody can just stay in their lanes. Nobody has to do too much, including Aaron Rodgers. Do your job, as the old Patriots saying goes, and this team is destined for good things. I think, unfortunately, with the Jets, that's often easier said than done.
Dan Orlovsky made his way down here this morning. Full squad put together. We got Olympic basketball to get to. We got lots of baseball to get to. But we begin with the Pittsburgh predicament, the #1 story in football right now. And it takes a huge step today. The first padded practice of the day is scheduled in Pittsburgh for this morning, despite it being a little rainy in Latrobe. We've seen that Russell Wilson has been nursing a calf injury. Justin Fields getting all the work with the first team. Brooke Pryor was with us earlier this morning talking about how that quarterback battle is shaping up. Ryan Clark had this to say yesterday about the opportunity for Fields.
This is where Justin Fields has to make his hay. This is where Justin Fields has to close the gap. And now with Russell Wilson not being at practice, we're getting to see some of the explosivity, some of the dynamic plays he can make with both his legs and his arms. And that stuff is tantalizing. I'm telling Coach Tomlin, let us go win. We don't want to be average. So give us a chance to be special. And I think Justin Fields does that.
So this is a really interesting conversation. And if you were not with us earlier, Brooke Pryor basically told us that through the first week or so of camp in which Justin Fields has been getting the majority of the reps, basically all of them, that he has done a lot of what he did in Chicago, which was spectacular in moments, but sometimes not able to do the little things, the easy things, the gimmies, if you will. Pro football is interesting because it has by nature become a very conservative place. Coaches are terrified of mistakes. Turnovers have become far more feared than they used to be. I'm old enough to remember when quarterbacks would throw 20 interceptions in a season routinely. These days, that gets you thrown out of the league. So, Dan, very simply, do you want, you're a quarterback, do you want the guy who's going to give you the spectacular plays, the guys who's going to every now and again do things that makes your jaw drop and that the defense can't stop, but every once in a while does not manage to convert on the really easy stuff, or do you want the much safer option?
I want the guy who can do both.
Look, I understand
those
that.
Those don't come around often.
Right.
If I have to choose between one or the other, I want the guy with the uncoachable traits. I want the guy that I can design plays and all that, and if the play doesn't work, you can go make something out of it. I want that person, and I'm just going to challenge myself to raise that level of consistency. And I think Justin Fields still has that element in his game. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're sitting there going, we know what Russell Wilson is. And we know who Russell is. We kind of don't know who Justin Fields is. Justin Fields has never had a George Pickens. Justin Fields has never had a top 5 offensive line. Justin Fields has never had a defense that has had guys like TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Mika Fitzpatrick on that. So we might think we know who Justin is when it comes to the individual silo. We've never seen Justin Fields in his talent and ability in a situation that he gets to plug and play in, like the one he would be in Pittsburgh. And I was, Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. But now that this door has opened and I've started to kind of place Justin in that role, if I'm the Steelers, I say, no. You got to show us that you can't do this job rather than think I have to go prove that I'm going to take it from Russell.
It's an interesting conundrum, Harry, to go back to we just had a conversation about the Jets and how the Jets have had this really good defense for years and they never play with the lead. And if they have an above average offense, what that will be like for them. Well, the Steelers should have an elite defense also. So when you have an elite defense, I can see the coach thinking, well, just give me a quarterback who's not going to put my defense in bad positions, who's not going to take negative plays, which has been the big knock on Justin Fields, not just turnovers, but a lot of sacks, all those things that sometimes put you get behind the chains. Now all of a sudden you're putting your defense on short fields. Which way do you see it, Harry? From the conservative choice, we're sort of labeling Russell Wilson the conservative choice here and Justin Fields the riskier one. Which way would you lean?
To start the season off, I'm going with Russell Wilson. I am. And I think we can't forget this, y'all. I want y'all to go back to when Arthur Smith was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons, the last 2 seasons. If the quarterback position did the little things right, the Atlanta Falcons make the playoffs in both years. So we can't ignore the quarterback position not being able to do the little things right and being consistent throughout the duration of the time that he's in the game of starting at the quarterback position. So I think that's also something that we cannot ignore. I'm here in Atlanta. I'm close with Arthur Smith. And I know how much that derailed that football team the last 2 years he was the head coach by the quarterback position just not doing the little things right. Because, see, the little things turn into big things. The next thing you know, you're not even in the playoffs.
Okay. One, if the alternative to Justin was a guy that I could go to the bank knowing he would do the little things on a consistent basis, we're having a different conversation. As much as I have a ton of respect for Russell, that's not who Russell is.
True.
That's been the flaw of Russell. Both these guys take the most amount of sacks in the NFL, and they create big plays, but they give up big plays. Here's my point and push back to you, Greeny, when you say, well, if Mike Tomlin, I just want to play good defense, and that you're not going to beat the Chiefs that way.
Right.
You're not going to beat the Ravens that way. You're not going to beat the Bengals that way. You're not going to beat the Texans that way. The context of who you have to play against has to matter just out or more than, okay, this is who we're going to beat. You're not going to beat those teams with a cautious mindset.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, Burrow and Lamar are both in your division. So I completely agree. I'm Team Justin, have been since before the Bears drafted him. But I see the other side of it. But I think you make an important point. I'm not really setting up a good, Jeff, I'm not really setting this up well because the history of Russell Wilson is not that he is this perfectly on time, perfectly on schedule,
right.
Drew Brees-esque
They're similar players.
Quarterback. It's really not a perfect way that I'm positioning this here. How do you see it all, Jeff Darlington?
Well, I know that these two players deserve respect, and this is not intended to knock them, but I go back to what Bill Parcells used to say. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. And one of these guys is going to need to elevate and make it very clear. It can't be to the point where they say, well, Justin Fields didn't win the job, so we're going to keep it for Russell. One of these guys has to make it clear, and I use the perfect example of Russell Wilson his rookie year. When they paid Matt Flynn, brought him in, and it was so obvious in training camp that Russell Wilson was the guy.